Leaving an addicted and abusive system is often described as freedom, and in some ways it is, but leaving can also be a shock to your nervous system. Most people expect to feel relief immediately and want clarity to arrive quickly. They expect the fear to drop once the danger is gone, but that is simply not how the body works, and it's not how trauma works. It's just not how addiction-shaped systems unwind. For many people, the hardest part begins after they leave. You might feel calmer, but also more destabilized at the same time. You might sleep better, but feel emotionally raw. You might question yourself more now than you did when you were still inside it. And that can feel terrifying. It can make people wonder if they made a mistake. And none of those feelings mean that you did. Research on trauma and chronic stress shows that the nervous system often suppresses emotional processing while a threat is active. So while your body prioritizes survival, it has to narrow your focus and delay your feeling so that when the threat finally reduces, your system opens the gate. And what comes through is a flood of all the things you had to suppress to survive whatever situation you were in for so long. That is why many survivors report that anxiety, grief, panic, and doubt actually increase after separation. This can peak months later. It's not always immediate. Studies on intimate partner violence and post-separation abuse show that the 3 to 6 month window is a common danger zone emotionally. This is when people are most likely to return to the relationship, not because the relationship was healthy, but because uncertainty feels unsafe, and it might even be unsafe. Research also shows this 3 to 6 month window can be the most dangerous for someone who leaves an abusive relationship. And addiction just adds another layer to this. Addiction systems create what I call predictable unpredictability. Chaos becomes familiar. Your nervous system learned timing, tone, escalation, reconciliation. Even harm had a rhythm. And when that rhythm disappears, your body searches for it. You almost feel empty in the quiet of it all. Silence can feel louder than the conflict ever did. This is where people start saying things like, well, at least I knew what to expect before. That thought is not evidence that the past was better. It's evidence that your nervous system just hasn't recalibrated yet. Trust doesn't come back as confidence. It comes back as tolerance. And it's tolerance for uncertainty, tolerance for discomfort, and tolerance for not knowing what happens next without abandoning yourself to fix it. Early recovery from coercive control is not about insight. Insight comes later. The first phase is about stabilization. Many survivors think that they should already understand everything. They want to make sense of the relationship, they want answers, they want closure. But research in trauma recovery consistently shows that cognitive clarity follows physiological safety, not the other way around. So you're not really going to be able to make sense of it until you feel safe or at least secure, because your body has to know that it's not in danger. This is why routines matter so much after leaving. Predictable days tell your nervous system that the world is not constantly shifting. Limiting contact matters when possible also. Every interaction can reactivate threat pathways, and this is why documentation matters in high conflict situations. It reduces gaslighting and helps anchor reality outside your internal doubt. And if anything, you can go back and reflect on your experiences that you wrote in real time. You're not failing if you still think about them. You're not weak because you miss parts of the relationship. Attachment bonds don't dissolve on command, especially when intermittent reinforcement was involved. Intermittent reinforcement is a well-documented behavioral pattern in both addiction and abuse. It is the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. So imagine that you're in a relationship where your partner is emotionally cold most of the time. They ignore you, criticize you, or disappear when you try to connect. Then, without warning, they become warm. They apologize. They say you're the only one who understands them. They're attentive for a night or maybe even a whole weekend. Your body relaxes in those moments. The tension drops. You feel close again. But then it's gone. You don't know when the warmth will return or what triggers it. So you start adjusting yourself. You watch your tone. You avoid certain topics. You try harder on the days they seem distant because you remember how good it felt when they were kind. That cycle is intermittent reinforcement, where the care is unpredictable. The relief feels intense because it follows distress. Your nervous system learns to chase the relief, not because the relationship is safe, but because the contrast is so powerful. That is why people stay even when they know the relationship is hurting them. Unpredictable rewards create stronger attachment than consistent ones. Your brain learned to chase moments of connection. Leaving does not erase that conditioning instantly. This is also where the shame creeps in. Shame for staying, shame for missing them, shame for feeling relief, shame for not feeling relieved enough. Over time, trust begins to return in subtle ways, not as a sudden sense of safety, but as moments where your body reacts differently. You may notice you stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You may realize you made a decision without checking how it would land. You may feel anger without collapsing into guilt. You may set a boundary and not explain it 10 times. These are markers of nervous system recovery. They matter more than positive thinking or forgiveness narratives. A common mistake in healing culture is pushing people toward meaning making too early. Forgiveness, understanding their trauma, compassion for the addict, those things are not wrong, they're just mistimed. When power dynamics were involved, when coercive control existed, premature empathy often leads to self-abandonment. Right now, your job is not to understand them. Your job is to rebuild yourself. And that rebuilding requires containment. Containment means having enough structure that your system can rest. It means clear limits. It means external reality checks. It means support that understands addiction and abuse as intersecting forces, not isolated issues. If your support system minimizes what you went through, your nervous system will stay on guard. If people rush you, your body will resist. Healing doesn't respond well to pressure. Now, this phase also includes grief. Not just grief for the relationship, but grief for the version of yourself that adapted to survive. You probably feel some sadness for how much you had to change in this relationship. You survived by becoming someone you needed to be. And now you have the space to become someone else. Now that transition can feel very disorienting. Identity after addiction and coercive control often feels thin at first. Maybe your preferences are unclear and your desires might feel muted. That's what it feels like when space for you returns. Over time, your center of gravity shifts back inside you. You start trusting your reactions. You notice red flags earlier without freezing. You tolerate discomfort without chasing relief through old patterns. You pause, and that pause is everything. Healing isn't linear. You're going to have days where your doubts return loudly. That doesn't erase your progress, though. Nervous systems heal in spirals, and each pass teaches safety a little bit deeper. If you're in this phase, nothing is wrong with you. Your system is just recalibrating after long-term exposure to chaos, addiction, and control. That is going to take time. It's going to take steadiness and patience. And maybe those are things that nobody taught you to have. So clarity comes later. Identity follows stability. Meaning emerges after safety is established. Stick with it and give yourself compassion for all you've been through and overcome. You'll get there.